Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Michael with the Real 1% back at you guys with a special guest today. I have Brage with me. How you doing today, ma'am?
Good. How are you?
Hey, good. Thanks for coming on. So you're actually the first person I've had on that is not a veteran, but that's okay because you're a veteran by heart and by trade with the stories you're going to tell us what you've done with your life. So if you don't mind, we're going to obviously hit on military to civilian transition and the game plan to success, but it's going to be like a curveball today because we're going to sort of we're gonna flip the script and sort of talk about some of my struggles essentially, and some of the things that you've seen through your time helping service members. So for all the listeners out there, if you don't mind, just giving a little quick introduction about yourself and how you ended up getting involved with the military community.
So first, thank you so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this since you reached out, so thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Brage Garofalo. It's pronounced Rage with a B because everybody looks at my name and they're like, "How do you say that?"
I had to ask you when I first talked to you. I said, "How do you say your name again?" Because it's like I don't want to mispronounce. I've never seen it before, so I had to ask.
So I'll make it easy. And so I have been involved in the veteran transition space for the better part of 10 years. And I got involved almost by accident. So a friend of mine, her son deployed to Afghanistan right after 9/11, and he did two deployments. And when he came back, his transition was very rocky, as you can imagine. And early on in the war, there really weren't any, veteran services like there are now to help support transitioning service members in every aspect. So she and I dipped into our LinkedIn network and looked for anybody and everybody who could try to help him in some capacity. And long story short, we finally were able to find people who could talk with him and support him and point him in different directions where he could get the support that he needed. And so after he finally landed, he had a soft landing thereafter. And so he found, a job that he was really happy with. He was working for the city, working outside in the parks department. So he had that freedom,
Okay.
didn't have to sit behind a desk, didn't have to be around a lot of people if he didn't want to. So it really worked out nicely. He got help for his PTS. He's got a family now. He's doing really well. So after we were able to finally find him a place and get him on his way, I kind of sat back and I thought that was probably one of the most gratifying experiences that I've ever encountered. And so at the time, Barack Obama was in office, and Michelle and Jill Biden, they were both very proactive in supporting veteran causes and veteran transitions and support. So I started looking on their website and looking for different resources that would help support veterans and service members as they were transitioning. So I found an organization, it's called eMentor, and I logged on and signed up. And I was flying by the seat of my pants because I'm not a formal coach. I'm not a formal anything. And I've never looked back. It's just, I've met some amazing, amazing men and women over the course of my travels. And it's just, I'm never ceased to amaze at what they've accomplished and where they've come from in their lives, not just from their home life, but just where they started before they got into the military, how much they've accomplished over the course of their career, and then, looking ahead to the next chapter and, where they want to go and the tenacity in which they embrace it. So it's just been a wonderful journey. And so that's how I got involved, really.
So you just signed up for eMentor and we're like, all right, but you just winging it, but you made it happen though, right? You probably started getting people pushed your way to get advice from you, counsel, and how'd that work out for you? You start getting bombarded once you signed up, or what?
So I started to reach out to a lot of the service members because what I was finding was that sitting back and waiting for them to ask for
Hmm.
help was not going to work. As you know, it's difficult to ask for help when you think that you can do it yourself, which I'm the same way. I'm like, well, I can do it. So I started reaching out to different service members based on what they were looking for and based on what I thought that I could help support them with. And then I
Okay.
started to started to work with multiple service members, men and women that were getting ready to transition in all branches, the Marines, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Air Force. So yeah.
So when you started working with all these veterans, what were some things that they all needed? Were there things that commonalities between them all that they all needed help on some of the same things regardless of the branch, or was everyone sort of individually tailored because they want to go into a certain industry?
So I think one of the common themes that I started to see and that I still continue to see is the not knowing when to begin planning. So there were some where they're like, well, I've got 6 months before I get out, so let's start planning the transition. And you really need a minimum of a year and a half to start planning your transition. Or they didn't really have an idea of where to start in terms of looking for what they wanted to do on the other side of their military career. So, we would talk about, what are your passions? What are your interests? What do you want to do? And they'd be like, I have no idea. And they didn't even know where to start because it's so overwhelming. Like, where do you start when you haven't ever had to do that, when you've been told, where your next position is going to be in the military?
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that I see.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you're right. It seems like a lot of people I've talked to too, they say even people that have done 30 years in, sometimes they're worse and they don't know how to turn off being in the military, or they never plan to be something after the military because they're just not used to it. So some people transition great, some people, not so great, but overall it seems like people need more help than they really think they do. Because if you don't get out with a plan A or B or even C, I mean, it could all erupt in your face. Like I had a job when I first got out the military, but it was in Alaska. So it was on the oil rig. So at first it was good because I was on terminal leave and working in Alaska. So you're double dipping, but life happens, got my girlfriend pregnant, came back home, left the job. So the plan A was good. But when I got to plan B, that was like, wasn't really a plan. It was more or less a survival of, hey, I don't really have enough money or anything like that to get off of my own in Florida at the time. Never mind, I got a pregnant girlfriend, so let me go ahead and swallow my pride and ask to move in my family's house, right? So that's probably, that's mentally on me. I mean, I got no shame to say it. That's messed up. I was a grown man, 27 years old, having to move back in with my family that I just was gone for 8 years of my life doing my own thing since I was 18, so that right there, I mean, that was rough. And then you get a job for $14 an hour, $13 an hour, and you were making more when I was working in Alaska. So you're not making any money. Then I'm paying $400 for a car that I thought it was cool to get right when I was in the military, or $300 for a car note. Then my insurance got horrible because I got bad speeding ticket, blah, 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 right? The domino effect. So then I'm paying like $600 or $700 to drive my car on top of just all this other stuff. So it could get ugly real quick, is I guess what I'm trying to say in a nutshell. But like, I'm glad I was able to get through it and everything like that. But yeah, just know if you got a plan A, it could trickle off. Plan B might not work. You got to have a couple of different avenues of approach. So I'm smiling about it now, but I wasn't smiling back then. So like
your family to help you. So I mean,
I have my family, thank God. Yeah,
that's
thankfully.
one of the most important things is that, and that's the key, is that you're asking for help. Whoever that you trust, that is going to support you and who cares about you. It's not about having to swallow your pride at all. It's, here's what happened, here's the situation, here's what I need right now. It's kind of like a port in a storm. Here's the port in the storm, and this is what I need, and now I can figure out what I need to do, the next steps to get to where I need to go next.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, so, and I even had to reach out to get help when we finally made it out of my family's house. Like I work with like the Jewish Family Community Center, like the service center or whatever the abbreviation is, but they have people think there's like no way out. Even the VA has a HUD dash or whatever. I don't know the whole ins and outs of the program, but there's a lot of things out there that help veterans, like maybe get a kickstart. Not to say you should look for that, because you should just plan to have enough stuff to make it happen for yourself. Like you said, give yourself a year's time, give yourself a year and a half, start planning, start thinking about lifestyle inflation or about budgeting or about, I mean, when I was in the military, for the most part, all we do is go blow a whole check. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I I didn't have kids or nothing like that. I'm going to buy stuff at the mall, going out, doing all that. But I got smarter as time went, thankfully. But, I didn't really get out the military with too much money at all. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So that's most people anywhere. Most people live in check to check. That's just the reality of the world we live in today. So hopefully don't fall in that statistic, on that side of the spectrum. Get on the other side, get out with a plan, get out with a job, get out with your school benefits already in order. That way you get paid 30 days after you get out, but you got leave still or something. I don't know how, like it's just about planning. That's what that's
Yes.
what it's master plan. You have to devise your own master plan for yourself, have people help you, find a network, find the things that you love to do, the passions. But at the end of the day, you got to pretty much do it yourself with a little bit of help. Like you said, there's eMentor and other things like that, but they're not going to want it as bad as you. Nobody is, so.
And that's true. I can't want it more than you do.
Absolutely.
But there are so many different organizations that are there to support the transitioning service member. So there's eMentor, there's American Corporate Partners. So their models are they offer mentorship to help guide the transitioning service member. But then there's really great organizations. So I sit on the board of NSOF, Navy Special Operations Foundation, and we support the Navy EOD and diver community.
Okay.
And we've got 4 pillars, and one of them is the transition pillar, and that's the one that I lead because that's my special happy place. And so we will work with the EOD techs and the divers to help plug them into different resources, whatever they need. I've just got a request for a tech that wants to go back to school to go to med school. So then we'll start planning, how do we prep you to get ready for school? There's others where they want to be an entrepreneur and start a business. So then we figure out who do you need to talk to, to be able to develop a business plan and figure out how you're going to do funding and how you're going to structure your business. So all different kinds of resources. There's also the Commit Foundation as well as the Honor Foundation, and both of them really focus on the holistic piece of the transition. And what I like about both of the programs are really phenomenal. So with the Commit Foundation, it's done at your pace. So it's a self-paced program, depending on how much time you have to give to your transition at the time that you sign up. And so it starts with finding your purpose. And so does the Honor Foundation, Start With Why, based on Simon Sinek. And I think that not every person is very touchy-feely, but I think that it's important to tap into that, because understanding your why, because
Absolutely.
you have lived your why for however many years that you've been in the military, lived it, breathed it, slept it, ate it, spent time with it. And as you move away from that, you have to you have to be able to now name what that is so that you can find purposeful work again. And so both organizations have you focus on figuring out what your purpose is. What is that fire that's inside of you that's going to propel you out of bed every single morning? And then through that, then each program will then go through the different aspects of the transition and different things to think about. What are your strengths? So for the Honor Foundation, they'll go through the Gallup strengths. And so then you tie the Gallup strengths to your why, and then you come up with your 30-second elevator speech. And that kind of distills a little bit of, who you are. And it all ties together. So when you're sitting and talking with somebody and they say, tell me about yourself, you really know exactly who you are that you want to project to this particular person. And the Commit Foundation, they will pair you with an executive coach when you sign up, and that coach will support you throughout your entire development and your entire time in the program, with going through all of the transition modules, which is fantastic because these people are just they're just fantastic human beings. And then the Commit Foundation also, they do workshops all over the country. And so there'll be different areas of focus. So I'm based in Northern California. So the workshop that they did here was based on tech and venture capital.
Okay.
So the fellows that participated were all interested in that particular area. And they had a wonderful panel of experts that had all different journeys in terms of how they got there and different backgrounds that they could share. Then they had breakout sessions with, with the panelists. And it was, not only was it really well run and well organized and structured, but it was so beneficial and meaningful to the fellows who attended. Like, you could just tell that they were just sponges soaking everything up. It was really phenomenal. The Honor Foundation, so that is a 3-month program from start to finish. So the nice thing about Commit is that it's self-paced, so that if your life is a little crazy nutty, you can do it at your pace based on your availability and your time permits. With the Honor Foundation, it's an upfront 3-month commitment. So class is 2 nights a week. There's homework, but it encompasses also the holistic component of your transition. So they also will pair you with a coach to go through the program with you. So I'm a coach with the Honor Foundation as well. And it goes through, you meet with your fellow once a week and go through all of the work that you're doing or that they're doing in the program, and kind of talk through where are they, how are they feeling about it. But also you start talking about kind of not just the intellectual piece of the transition of, all right, you need to start thinking about, what you want to do and networking and putting together a resume and so on, but really kind of wrapping your head around the emotional and the mental component of your transition, because some are getting out because they want to, some are retiring, and some are being medically retired. And I've worked with a couple of fellows where they were being medically retired and their head was not in the game. Like, that was not their plan. Their life plan was they were going to, be in the military for their career, retire at 20, and then figure it out. And here they were, like 8 years later being medically retired. And they're like, this was not my plan. And so you need to work through that piece of it first, because if you don't get through the emotional and the mental piece first and address that intellectual difference, the transition is not going to be successful because your head's not in the game. So, so the coaches will work through all of that with the fellows as they go through the program. And in both programs, you're working on mock interviews, you're helping them develop a pathway and timelines and milestones for where they want to be within a specific time based on when they get out, what they're looking for. But both programs are really fantastic. So there are so many resources out there to support transition now than there were 20 years ago. That it's, I just want to, I want, if anybody who's watching or listening, if you walk away with nothing else, just know that there are so many people out there who can, will, and want to support every facet of your transition. And even if you're on the other side and you've transitioned, 4, 5, 6 years, previously, and you're still struggling, we're still here to support you. It's a lifetime support network. It's not a one and done.
Thank you for sharing that. I've never heard of either one, but I'm taking notes over here so I can learn and maybe even reach out to people. I'm trying to, just trying to bring all this stuff to light, just to put it out there and be like, put it like that. Everyone scrolls Facebook all day, but what if they scrolled like a Facebook that just showed everything that's offered for veterans? Okay, we got this, we got the Commit, we got Honor, we got, whatever. There's so much stuff. There's so many nonprofits. I mean, I did Entrepreneur Boot Camp for Veterans through Syracuse, IVMF, the Institute of Veterans and Military Families. I mean, they put on like class act, grade A, top notch like stuff for veterans, and I mean they're doing it all the time. It's they get thousands of veterans. So I was going to ask you, like, what's the exposure like for that Commit and the Honor, and also for the other soft thing that you're the organization that you're a part of as well? Like, do you guys have a lot of fellows and stuff like that, or is it kind of hit or miss, or what would you say?
No, so the Commit Foundation, so they have a lot of men and women that go through their program, as does the Honor Foundation. So the Commit Foundation is more virtual.
Okay.
So you can be located anywhere. They
Gotcha.
don't have a campus per se. The Honor Foundation, however, they have multiple campuses all over the country. So they were founded by Joe Musselman, started in San Diego, and they now have campuses. Then they expanded, and they've got a campus in Virginia Beach, and they've got campuses everywhere. North Carolina, Camp Lejeune. They're out in Tampa. Uh, Eglin Air Force Base. They just opened up a new campus in Tacoma. I mean, they've got a virtual campus for those that are either deployed or not near a brick and mortar campus. I mean, they've got one in Tampa. Like, they're everywhere. So,
Right.
which is fantastic, and they serve. So the Honor Foundation serves the Special Operations Forces community.
Okay.
So it's Green Berets, Delta, Army Rangers, Team Guys, PJs,
SEALs.
CCT, JCT. So I mean, like, you name a special operator, and they EOD divers. So they support all of the operators, and they will also support. So those that are supporting the special forces. So if you've got, say, somebody who does intel, who supports, a platoon, or supports a small group of special forces, then they can, they'll also attend the Honor Foundation.
Okay.
So they've probably got, I mean, they've expanded exponentially under the leadership of Matt Stevens, who's the CEO, and it's just been, I mean, like, they can't take everybody. Like, it's just, they almost have to turn people away at some point. Like, it's just, they do such a great job.
Okay. That's great.
Like,
And
both
that's all.
organizations do, really. I mean, it's just, they both do just a fantastic job in really supporting that transition process in all areas.
That's great because we all need it. That's in regards to that. What do someone need to do to get on board? What would they have to do to get on board? How far out do they have to be from either ETS or retirement or med board? Like, what's the prerequisite sort of to get on board? Can you go over that real quick?
So there isn't, so with the Honor Foundation, I believe you need to be 18 months out to apply. Don't quote me on that, but I believe somewhere in that neighborhood. But the other piece to the Honor Foundation is, if you've already transitioned and you're an operator, and you need help, you can still apply and go. So I worked with one gentleman where he had retired. He'd been out for, I think, 5 years, and he was kind of like, I don't know what I don't know. And so he applied, and he went through the program.
Okay.
Ideally, so okay, I'll start with this first and then get to the other organizations. So ideally, you want to be thinking about your transition at a minimum a year and a half before you get out. And it seems like a long time, but there's so much that happens between that point when you start and then when you get out, that you really need to have that time. Because while you're also planning your vacation, you're also going to need to start planning all of your VA appointments. And as everybody knows, those are a time suck. And then you got to pull all your documentation, and then you got to put it all together, and then you got to follow up with all of the doctors. And it's just like, it's a time suck and a black hole. So you need to be planning for that piece in addition to planning out your transition. So a minimum of a year and a half. My personal recommendation is 2 years out, because that way you've got a little bit of breathing room. Your hair isn't on fire, and you can start planning in earnest, especially if you're not sure what you want to do on the other side of your military career. So this gives you time to kind of explore and figure out what fits. Because just because you've done something for 8, 10, 15, 20 years in the military doesn't necessarily mean you want to continue doing that on the other side. So that would be my recommendation. With NSOF, with the Navy Special Operations Foundation, so once you can request support at any time. There's no prerequisite whatsoever. So as soon as if you're part of the EOD or diver community and you want some support in any capacity, whether it's transition or we do warrior care to help plug into mental health resources, um, emergency requests and services. If there's something that's going on in the family's life where you need immediate support, we do that. And all you have to do is just contact us and make the request. There's no prerequisite time period to request support for transition help or anything like that.
Okay, how would they contact you on in that regard? Just on
So,
LinkedIn, or what's the best
so
way?
for NSOF, you can go on our website and you can submit a request. So you can request transition assistance, and then that I get an email as well as our director of programs, Teresa Meha. So it comes to the both of us, and then she goes through the initial intake, and then it comes to me, and then I'll reach out to the EOD tech or diver and schedule some time to talk, and then we're off and running.
Okay, too easy then. Thank you for sharing that information. What's the main thing that most people struggle with, minus like turning it off or like knowing what to do next? What else have you seen with all your years of experience in dealing with veterans? Like what are they lacking, or what could be improved in the transition process?
I think one of the hardest pieces is the switching of your identity. And I'm sure that you experienced the same thing as well, where you've been in the military for X number of years and that's your identity. That's who you are. And exponentially so the longer that you've been in. And so it's very scary to try to figure out what your identity is going to look like after you transition. And I completely understand that. In any transition, whether it's military or otherwise, you're always having to step into something new, which is very uncomfortable. But what I tell the men and women that I work with is that the person that you are in the military never changes. That person never goes away. That all of the attributes, the leadership, the tenacity, the hard worker, all of that, you take that with you everywhere you go. The only thing that changes is the color of your pants. So they're not camis anymore. Now they're just a regular pair of blue jeans. But that's the biggest piece that changes in terms of identity. The other thing that I see a lot, which is also near and dear to my heart, where we can talk about that later, is community. So once you leave the military and you transition, and I'm sure you've experienced this as
Oh yeah.
well, is trying to find that same sense of community. And you and I talked about this when we first connected, is how important that tribe is. So when you're in the military, like you're surrounded by your people, like those are your people, and it's you always have somebody to plug into if you're having a crap day, if you want to be silly, if you whatever you want to do, you've got your built-in group. But when you transition, and especially if you relocate, you don't have that, and you're kind of untethered. And I think about it like Wilson, the volleyball with
Yeah.
Tom Hanks, and forget what the name of the movie's called.
Castaway.
Castaway. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Where Wilson goes further and further away in the water, and he can't get to him. And if you're relocating and you don't have people that a social network that you can connect to, it can be very lonely and isolating, and make your transition just um, that much more challenging, and it doesn't need to be. So those are kind of the two things that I continue to see, and um, I try to over the course of my travels, I know people in all different areas in the U.S. So if I'm working with somebody and I see that they're going to be moving somewhere and relocating, and they don't have any family support, friends, they don't know anybody, they're like flying by the seat of their pants, then I'm going to try to connect them so that that they're tethered to somebody who understands the path that they've walked. So I know that you went through something similar. So what was your experience like?
Mine, oh man, it was just like you said. I mean, you got that camaraderie for the most part with plenty of people that are in your unit, sometimes more than a handful, sometimes the whole unit, just depends on where you are, but you're always going to have someone to connect with, like you said. So leaving that and then going just to the civilian sector, I mean, I worked a lot of different jobs, and you just get around people that don't really care. They don't really care to perform. And I wasn't really used to that. So that really rubbed me the wrong way. And I mean, when you're getting paid under $15 an hour, you're going to already be disgruntled, right? If you're used to making $50,000 or $60,000 a year. So add all that into the mix, and I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster. You got to get around people that are like-minded as you. Doesn't matter if you're in the military or not. Like to bring out the full potential in yourself, right? If you're not around people that are like-minded, then you're probably not happy where you are, whether that's work, friends. So, I mean, that happened to me. I worked different jobs, and I struggled to find a community. I mean, I grew up in Sarasota where I moved back to, but I left when I was in high school. I figured out I wasn't that popular, when I left for the military. And I'm in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you think you're cool because you were partying in high school or something like that, but no one's hitting you up like they were when you were home every weekend. So you just find that out real quick. So that was a reality check that I learned real fast in the military. As soon as we got to Iraq, I mean, as soon as I joined, you don't hear from anybody. Your friends your friends that you thought you had. You may hear from one or two or something like that if you're lucky, but everyone else is just doing their life. They're not really worried about what you got going on. So, yeah, that's something. But when I started going to school, I started linking up with veterans. So I went through like 12 different jobs, all horrible. No one wants to pay nothing, food service stuff. Then I worked in some mental health hospitals, and that was a rewarding job. But for $13 an hour, working like midnight to 8. I mean, with a newborn, like a young kid, I was doing it. I liked it, but it just didn't work out. So I was like, what am I doing? I just try to work like for a year or two, almost about 2 years, working all these jobs, dead ends. No one's giving me a chance to make good money or perform. And I was like, I'm just going to use my benefits. And then I started connecting with veterans because it was like a non-traditional school, but they had a lot of veterans there. And, that helped. I met some good friends from there, but you don't have to just have veteran friends too. I mean, some people make a good point. You just got to connect with people that you can get out with, because if you just put yourself in that, you might not find people like you're finding at a unit. When you're in the military, you're surrounded by thousands of soldiers if you're on a big base. So you're going to connect with people. But on the outside world, everyone's off doing their own thing. But you're absolutely right. You got to just build a community. And that's sort of what I'm trying to do here. And like you said earlier, you didn't wait for people. That's what I was doing when I first tried to start this endeavor. I was waiting. Like, where's everybody? Why are they not lining up to give their time away? Like, give me your time. Like, no, you got to like get out there and like get after it and make people like think that you have to add value to someone else, or think that they have to think that you're adding value. That way it's like worthwhile. You know what I mean? I'm not just trying to connect with people. I'm trying to like build a network out. That way we can help each other, because it blows my mind how much disconnect there is. Because for one, the world's so connected. For two, we lived in such close quarters and we did so much stuff together and when we were in the military. And I'm sure everyone can vouch for that at some point in time or another. It doesn't even have to be in combat. It could be in training. It could be in the field for 40 days or whatever the case may be. And when you get out, you lose that. It's not going to be the same. It doesn't matter if you had 20 good friends. If you leave from San Diego and move back to Rhode Island or something like that, those people are still going to be in San Diego and you're going to be back to Rhode Island. So you got to plan. I guess you got to plan for that too, because I was going to ask you, do you see a lot of people make a big cross country move when they get out for like a job or to get home? Because some people will say that's a tough bite to swallow, since you might get up and move somewhere. And I talked to someone, actually, they did that, and then they end up like not liking their job, and they just moved all the way across country, didn't know anyone, and that's sort of like putting yourself in isolation as well. So you have anything on that?
I have seen that, and that's one of the things that I talk about with the men and women that I work with when we're planning. Is, are you looking to relocate? And many of them are, and many of them will be relocating because they've got family. So they've got, small children, or, kids that are in like middle school, and, they've got family members that can, be part of the family tribe and help support while they're working. But if they don't, but they know that there's an industry. So there's some that, might be relocating to Texas because they want to be in oil and gas. but they don't necessarily know anybody there. So
Right.
then that's part of where I will ask, do you have a social network to plug into? Do you know anybody there? And if they don't, then I start thinking about, going through my mental Rolodex. Who do I know in those areas that they can plug into? Because, again, to your point, the camaraderie and the community that you have in the military really doesn't exist in the civilian world, and if it does, it's few and far between, both outside as well as in the corporate sector. And so the transitioning service members, like, you need to have people who understand the path that you have walked. And when you're having a crap day, they understand what that looks like for you. It's not just that, somebody's hair is on fire at work, or, you got stuck in traffic. It's, it can be something so much bigger and or so much more nuanced that only you would understand what that means to them. And so that's why I think that it's so important to have, to be able to plug in and to have, that network, like the Commit Foundation. So Michelle Olive is, she's heading up their alumni and being able to provide that tribe for all of the fellows who are going through the program. And now they've got somebody that they can connect with that has gone through it and understands it and has walked that walk. So, being able to, the organizations, formulate and put together those kinds of networks, so that A, it's not one and done, and B, no matter where you go, there is somebody there that's going to be there to support you, that can plug in where you can go grab a beer or go hunting or go fishing, or, whatever it is that you want to do, you have somebody who is like-minded, who's going to be there to walk the walk with you.
You said Michelle Olive, you said?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't think that's the same. That's not the same lady that does Dog Tag Bakery, is it?
No.
Okay, I think her name's Megan. I got her confused because that's another thing. They got another program, just to throw it out there since I said her name. But it's a Dog Tag Bakery. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's like it's like a fellowship at Georgetown, and it's like a pretty cool program. I actually met her when I went to Austin, because they have the other thing through the Syracuse University IVMF. It's Veteran Edge Conference, so it's for veterans that are entrepreneurs that are established businesses and stuff like that. So you can go, and they have like a 4-day workshop conference networking event in Austin. And it's amazing. It was and it's like hundreds and hundreds of veterans that are in business. That doesn't matter if they're doing barbecue sauce or essential oils, or me, I'm reselling clothes on eBay. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm trying to make money. I'm doing it as a business venture. You know what I mean? So whatever you guys have out there, veterans make the best business owners in my mind. They said after World War I, like almost 50% of all small businesses were owned by veterans. Like now it's like 3%. So I mean, you work so hard, like in the military, for your country, for your squad leader, for, just for yourself too. Carry that over. And just like, that's what I had. I worked contracting when I got out. I finally did get a break. I guess I don't even know if it's a break. It's not really a break. It's like a trade-off, because I had to leave I went on a civilian deployment, essentially, right? Signed up, got a job contract and go on, make good money, make 6 figures. It's out there. So doesn't matter if you're a cook, if you could run defects, the money's there for you. You got a clearance, the money's there for you. It's out there in the second. So you don't have to think that, but you have to leave and go get it. You have to go to where all those contracts are.
Right.
But I mean, that's something that I did. And but you got to make sacrifices at the end of the day. If I wasn't prepared enough to stay home and make it happen, right? I didn't have that mindset. I didn't think I was going to get out the military and have a kid as soon as I did either. So my mindset was, I'm going to come figure out, chill in Sarasota, maybe go work in Alaska for a little bit, see how that goes until it gets cold. Cause I was there during the summer. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to come up here during the cold. I don't know. But it was nice during the summer, but everything works out, and it did. But going back to like the veteran entrepreneurship stuff and like the programs, there's so much stuff out there. They even had a tennis camp before COVID. It was in San Diego. I was just getting ready I was going to go. I got selected to go, but I got the job in Dubai. So I obviously took the job, but there's just so many things out there for vets. Like I'm probably not even on the tip of the iceberg. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know I didn't know honor. I didn't know Navy Special Operations Foundation before I met you. So, I mean, all this stuff just needs to be pushed out there more and more so we can keep helping people. So it's crazy.
But
But
what you're doing is really fantastic as well, because I've watched a lot of your interviews with your other guests, and they cover just a range of branches and all different leadership levels and all different, areas of, where they've worked and what they've done. And they've all provided kind of not just their lessons learned, but shared the resources that they've used as well.
exactly.
So, I mean, like you said, I mean, there's so many resources out there that it's almost impossible to keep up with them all.
Yeah.
But everybody's, tapping into, one or the other. So Texas has, I think it's called Tex Vets. If I vet Tex Vets,
Tex-Mex. Tex-Mex.
Tex Vets, and
Tex-Mex vets. Tex-Mex vets. I don't know.
Tex Mex is, which is also very delicious.
That's like
But
a tongue twister.
it is, but they keep a database of all of
Good.
the different resources available to veterans in Texas.
Okay.
And what would be phenomenal, and I've talked about this with my friends, over the years of, how do you create a national database
Oh
of
man,
all of the
that's what
different
I've been thinking about. I've been thinking about why don't we have like just a veterans only like LinkedIn or something like that, but it just has I don't know like a one-stop shop app or something like that.
There actually is, but I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But, having a national database or even on a state by state level, which I think maybe that's a better place to start, of all the different veteran services within a specific state, and then organize it by what they provide, whether it's transition or it's mental health or it's family services or whatever it might be. Um, but the challenge with that is trying to keep it updated, because you've got some organizations where, they've been there for a long time, but some others, maybe the longevity isn't there. And so now you have to remove them. But then how do you know when to remove them? Or if an organization has expanded their services and now it's not just transition, but it's also, mental health. Like, so keeping those updated, I think has been somewhat of a challenge. And then making sure that you're capturing all of them. So you're relying on these organizations to reach out to you so that they can register with you. So you may not be catching everybody either. So it's a little bit of hit and miss. But I would love to be able to set something up like that in California, at least. Even though in the Bay Area, the veteran population isn't quite as extensive as it is, down in Southern California, like San Diego, where it's like the Navy's right there.
Right.
So I would love to do that. And then to cover your point about a LinkedIn that's dedicated to veterans in transition, the Veteran Mentor Network is, so that's a group on LinkedIn, and it was founded by Tom Cal, who was in the Army, a phenomenal human being, like just a phenomenal human. And it's a great place to go to talk about your transition and what you're going through and planning, and different questions you have about employers and industries and different roles. And it's a wonderful forum, and it's comprised of veterans and non-veterans, recruiters, people to ask, to answer questions about jobs, to help review resumes, do mock interviews, all of it. It's a really wonderful open forum on LinkedIn. It's a great group.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that too. So I absolutely get what you're saying for the database. That would be awesome. Like, and like going back to the points we made earlier, it wouldn't be so much about like them reporting, because like like you said, if they don't, it'd be more or less like it'd have to be a two-way street, but more or less the people running the database hitting everybody up that sort of comes into the veterans realm, like, hey, you guys doing anything different or something like that. But no, that'd be great. I mean, I know Florida has a the website. The state of Florida has a website outlining all the most of the benefits probably offered by the state level, or you know what I mean, like different stuff like the parks. But yeah, like you said, they're not going to cover every nonprofit or every retreat or every organization that's doing stuff for veterans. But it is a good place to start, because You just got to get in there and start reading. Start just Google. I mean, Google that. That's how I found That's how I found EBV. That's how I found the tennis camp. That's how I found all. I just found one today. It was another. It was a. Let me look the name real quick. But it was a outfit nonprofit that you signed up for, and it's about working out. So if you get approved for the program, it's for disabled veterans, and they either fund you like a gym membership, and they have all type of support and like peer-to-peer support or like coaching or a home gym. So it's
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and my other friend told me about something that you can sign up to get iPad. There's just so many things out there, but it's like it's not just it's just not out in the open. But I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. Sorry about that. I just signed up, but I guess I got a short memory span.
Post it on. So when we're done, post it on your YouTube.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, because that's great. Because that's another thing is that when you're in the military, you have an outlet. You can go work out and lift, or you can go do something physical, or whatever it is that you like to do that gives you that emotional release, that physical release. And so when you get out, like, you still need to have that routine and that release. So being able, so I'm working with a Marine Raider right now, and he does jujitsu. He's like a jujitsu Yoda. And so now that he is getting out, he's doing a skill bridge and looking for a jujitsu studio in Chicago, so that he can still keep that going, because that's his outlet.
Okay, that's great. That's great though.
So I think it's the takeaway is that whatever you were doing in the military that gives you that outlet, that gives you joy, don't stop doing it. Make time to do it. Block it off on your calendar if you have to. Just keep that routine. Set up a routine for yourself, so that you're not just kind of languishing and you don't have that structure. You need to create the structure for yourself. But every single one of the men and women that I've worked with, they already know how to do that. So it's just keeping on the other side. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am. I got the name of that thing too. It's called Catch a Lift Foundation. So I definitely I'm gonna make a video about it and share it, because I never heard about it. I actually saw someone post about it that was on Facebook, but I interviewed him, Jeremy, I think it was, and he was applying for it. And it's simple. You upload your DD-214, your summary of benefits, your summary of disabilities, and a picture of you. And it's a quick little application, quick little demographics, and ask you about your, easy stuff. It's not really hard, but I mean, I never even heard of that. All this stuff is awesome. One day I want to do something like this. Like, hey, I got a veteran retreat in Florida. Even you could do something. Hey, we're going to go to the baseball game one day. We're going to go to the aquarium. We're going to go to the beach. It's a beautiful beach, #1 beach out here. Chill, go on a boat cruise. I don't know, just stuff like that. It doesn't even have to be long, but things like that are definitely in the foresight of my future, and I hope they happen with this network, and we can get people going. And I mean, I got another one. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was a free log cabin for disabled veterans in Kentucky. I signed up for like October. I think I'm gonna go take my son. Why not? It's like it was $50 service fee or something like that for So I mean, and like I don't know. Since we're on the thing of benefits and like all this stuff, like if you become 100% disabled, permanent total, you can actually use like the military, all the DoD lodging. So if you're not retired, but you'll have 100% permanent total, you can use DoD lodging. You can go to Puerto Rico and stay on the water in a cottage for like $100 a night. My friend did it when he went down there for a wedding. So I'm not just blowing smoke. I'm telling you, I'm not making something up. My other, I did it. I was gonna stay in Cape Cod when I went to go for my uncle's birthday with my family, but we ended up staying with my sister. So that was that. And but it's there. It's like, and you're getting it for dirt cheap, and it's actually because it's Navy, Army, anything. So you can go you're by close to the water. We stayed actually in Key West. Me and two of my Army buddies. We stayed on one of the Navy bases down there, and I think it was like $100 or $80 a night. Like, you can't beat it.
No, that's fantastic.
So yeah. What you want to touch on? You want to hit on anything else? Anything on your mind? I feel like I'm like rambling about benefits, going a whole nother direction.
Great. So I'm learning from you.
That's how it
The
goes.
other, the other thing that I know that was near and dear to both of us, and one of the things that I really appreciated about what you're doing with your platform is around mental health. So you had done a couple of snippets on your YouTube about the importance of mental health and reaching out for help, and the different services. And so I know that that's a big topic right now, and there's a lot of organizations that are starting to pop up to support that. In addition to organizations that are supporting the use of psychedelics, like Vets, for example, with Marcus Capone and his wife, that have been doing such phenomenal work. And I think that the service members and the veterans are getting better about talking about that piece of it than they were, say, 5, 10 years ago, where that was taboo. Um, but I see that is a huge component as part of the transition, kind of like what we touched on a little bit earlier, which is if you're if you're struggling in any aspect of the transition, whether it's your command is, treating you, like garbage because you're getting out and they're just like, well, I don't want to deal with you anymore, or you're going through family issues or whatever it is. Be kind to yourself and be okay with reaching out for help. Like there's the Cohen Network, I should be better about knowing all of these resources. Cohen Family Network, I think, which is free counseling for veterans and their families. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of reaching out and talking to somebody. You don't necessarily have to revisit, all of the really um, painful past and experiences, but to be able to have somewhere to dump the garbage, to be able to talk it through, and to be able to know that whatever you are feeling is normal and it's okay, and you can talk about it, and it's okay to be uncertain and to be afraid, and transition is scary, and having to make changes that are like big ticket changes is scary, and that's okay. um, but don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be afraid to have that be part of the conversation when you're talking about transition.
No, you're right. What do you think broke? What do you think's changed that it's becoming more talked about now? Have you seen anything in your works or?
I think because there are more resources available to support mental health. So you've got Home Base in Boston. There's NICO. There's Vets. There's a lot that will help support you. The Cohen Family Network. Um, I think because it's out in the open, it's not taboo. There's no judgment around it like there was, so many years ago where, oh, you're depressed. Oh, I can't be around you. And now it's, you're depressed. All right, let me help you. Let's figure out how do we get you on the other side of that so that it's not debilitating, so that you can go back to doing the things that you enjoy doing, so that this doesn't overwhelm you. And I think that's probably what the most important piece is.
Okay, that's fair enough. And I looked up that Cohen's Veterans Network. I think
Thank you.
yeah, it's you can in need of a crisis, you could call 988 and press 1 right now if anyone ever needs that. And the website is Cohen Cohen veteransnetwork.org. So thank you for sharing. Thanks for sharing that. I never heard of that one either. So I had to pull it up real quick. Hey, you gotta love the internet. Literally everything's
everything's on the interweb.
Hey, and if you can't find it, get on these Chat GPT, Google Bard. Hey, what are I've used that before. What are veteran resources in Florida? You don't even have to click through. It's going to find stuff for you, and just check the checker. Obviously, don't take everything for what it's worth off the first thing you find, but Yeah, another great resource then. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure. Thank you for getting the name right.
No problem. You had it, so it's all good. But no, I mean, this is great. This is great, though. I mean, we could go on for days about benefits. Everyone's got their own benefits, but at the end of the day, it just boils down to having a plan. Don't be scared to get help, and don't wait till it's too late, because I only had 11 months when I went to Carson, and after I got a surgery and like was out for like a couple weeks on that. I mean, that time, and then all they cared about was going to the field and training, because they're not getting out the Army, and nor are they getting out the Navy. When you are the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard, whatever service you're in, when you're getting out, if they're not getting out at the same time, they're probably not really going to care, unless you got a good leader or a good chain of command and they really give a damn, which there are out there. I've heard some good stories before, but honestly, personally, I'm not going to say no names because I don't really care. That's over and done with, but no one cared for me. So, I'm sure there's other people that can register with that. But at the end of the day, you have to think about this right here. Excuse me. No one's coming to save you. So once you figure that out and you start pulling there are people out here to help you, but like we were saying earlier, like no one's going to want it as bad as you. So you really just got to figure out what it is you want to do. You don't have to like become Superman overnight, but you got to have something as a plan to make sure you got money to take care of yourself, to take care of your family, and just get everything that's yours. Because I didn't know about the VA disability claim. I didn't know about any of that. I didn't. So get all that stuff knocked out and take care of you. It doesn't matter if you're a sergeant major. It doesn't matter if you're a 4-star general, because someone else is going to take your slot, and you might have waited those 30 years to take care of yourself. And it's happened before, and they get out with 0% disability. There's no way you can get 0% after 30 years of service, even if you never deployed. Because what about all the PT? What about all the ruck march, or stuff like that? But hopefully people can get the gist of it, and they're having a better time of transitioning, for people like you that are helping, for people like me that are trying to help, and everyone else that's out there. So if you're trying to help, like I've talked to a couple people that say it's like a domino effect. They start, they help themselves or get help, then they tell them their friends, and their friends tell their friends. But that's what we need. We just got to keep doing that, and hopefully people wake up and get what's there. So
I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, you probably could have. You probably could have. But no, I mean, you wanna close it out on anything? You got anything else that you want to talk about? You can always come back on and keep sharing everything you got. So it's just up to you. We could keep going. You can say stop, but I'm down for whatever.
I'm just so appreciative to have the opportunity just to sit and talk with you, and to be able to share both of our experiences, because they're so different, and yet so your experience is so incredibly valuable and meaningful to anybody who is listening or watching. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk with you. And I certainly hope that that we can keep chitty chatting.
Oh yeah, for sure. We got time, as long as it doesn't act like the first time we tried to connect, when we were like playing like LinkedIn tag or something like that to make a phone call happen. Like as long as we don't go back to that, we're good. So I think we're good.
You made it work.
No, but go ahead.
So I wanted to learn a little bit more from you, from your transition, and a little bit about kind of where your headspace was, and if you could go back and do things differently, kind of, with 2020, what would be the big ticket things that you would do differently or think about differently now, that you would share with somebody who's just getting ready to get out?
How far back are you talking for? You want me to go, like in regards to what part of the transition, when I was still in the military, and how would I do it then?
So when you got out, and you were getting ready to go to Alaska, or whatever you were planning to do when you got out, like where were you, like what was your mental space?
I mean, at first I was doing good. I had terminal leave. I was getting paid still, and I had a good paying job in Alaska, so I was good. And then, once my son's mother called me at the time and told me she was pregnant, then I just was like, man, my whole life changed. I was like, I'm not going to work in Alaska I guess I could have, because it was a rotational job, but I just chose not to. I chose to be close. I try to be closer to her, but yeah, I don't know. So that sort of changed the whole scenario of it, and I just started to work, jobs back home because I thought it'd be better to be close, but I wasn't really thinking straight because I was so far in a hole, like I said, with the car note and not having a lot of income. I had zero disability at the time. So the first thing I would have done in the military was obviously go to the VA appointment that I missed, and that would have been taken care of before I got out. Now, would I be 100%? Maybe not. Maybe I would have got 60. Maybe I would have got 30. Who knows? But when I first got that 30%, I mean, that was like $300 a month, and that was like, wow, thank God I got this money, and that's $300. So that's not really doing much for you either nowadays. I mean, you go to the grocery store, you spend $300 on, real quick. So I should have, I don't know. I should have planned better as far as getting a job, but I did my best with the resume I had, and I try to go after the best jobs I could. I mean, I went to go find the best restaurant that was in the area. It was like a prestigious like chef or whatever, and he told me to come back in a couple months. So in the meantime, I had to find filler jobs before I could go back and try it out there. But at the end of the day, none of those jobs were doing anything. So I would have used my school. I wish I would have known to use my school benefits first rather than going through all those dead end jobs. Or I would have tried to get a job overseas like I did when I first got out, but that didn't happen. But it's kind of a gray area for me because I had a kid, so I feel like that's just such a catalyst, and it changed my life. Now, if I was single, who knows what would have happened, or if I was by myself. But if I could have flipped the gears, I would have figured out how to use my benefits sooner. I would have reached out for help sooner instead of thinking I was a turtle, like in my own shell. I had to reach out. I had to hit up my boy Nunez and be like, hey, man, I need help. He was a VSO. He's like, hey, you got to go see your VSO. You got the stuff in your record. Okay, then I got my 30%. Then I went back. Then I got a sleep study. Then I did all this stuff I never knew about when I was in the military. So to rewind even more, I would just do the research, like you said, plan out. You got to plan accordingly. I thought I was going to be good. I was going to go back home, get a job, and then go to culinary school and something like that. But my whole life changed by the way I was living and things I did. So I don't know if that really answers the question you asked me that well, but because it was just, I mean, I guess the moral of the story is you never know what's going to happen. I mean, that right there, that life-changing thing. Maybe what if you go somewhere and lose your job? That could be a life-changing thing. Get laid off. Plenty of people have gotten laid off in the last couple of years that, they might go from the military to corporate America and have a high-paying job and have a good transition. But what if they get laid off and then you got lifestyle inflation, or you're paying for a house or paying for this? I could barely even pay for my car. So I had piss poor financial planning from my time in the military, but I got better as time went on, but I still didn't have a nest egg to get out on. I didn't know about Skills Bridge. I didn't know. I would have loved to do something like that. I mean, I got an old soldier that got he got like a fellowship with Boeing. Now he got offered a job. So it's like, there's so many things like that out there. I was just so ready to get out of the military that I didn't even give a damn. I just wanted to get out, and I didn't have, but I wouldn't, if I could go back, I would have fought for myself harder, and I would have looked at more things to get involved with, because all my chain of command cared about was going to the field. And no one ever asked me what I was going to do when I get out. No one ever cared. I had to chaperone 2 soldiers that were getting chapted out for being overweight. So I asked them, I said, what y'all about to go do? Well, we're going to get a job, go to tech, I'm going to Houston. I'm going back home. Okay, well, I didn't know what else to ask them because I didn't know myself. I didn't even have anyone asking me questions. So I was doing the best I could with what I had. But just plan.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. So, but I think we should just wrap it up. I appreciate you coming on, Brage, and everything that you've done, and that you do for veterans alike. And hopefully we keep connecting. And, if you got any vets that have great success stories or even horror stories, but they're at a successful point in their life now, hey, send them my way if you don't mind.
I
So
don't mind. I've already, the wheels are turning. I know a couple of guys that would have fantastic stories to share with you.
okay,
I'd be happy to make the introduction
okay,
for
that
sure.
sounds good.
Um, yeah, so thank you again for having me on. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, and everyone listening in or about to listen to this, we appreciate you, and hopefully you guys gain some knowledge and some wisdom, some insight that you guys can apply to your life or to someone's your loved ones or your friends, families, lives around you that serve in the military that may be struggling or in a dark position or still in the military thriving, but just maybe never thought about getting out. Maybe you can plant that seed about, hey, what are you gonna do when you get out? Just ask the questions. I talk to people on here about the transition, and they said no one's ever even asked them about it. So that's why I feel like this is such a, I don't know, I guess like a shield of faith or something like that we can use because people are inspired by sharing their story. No one, you don't have an exit interview when you get out the military. They don't come knocking when like 90 days after say, hey, how you doing? How was it? So I feel like this is the last assault right here. Like this is everyone's last assault. The last mission is like to plan the exit plan, getting out the military. And like I was talking to some vets the other day about, I sort of had an exit plan when I got in. I feel like I had a good idea. I was like, all right, well, I'm not gonna take on student loans. Let me join the military. I'll do 4 years, get out, use my GI Bill, go to culinary school. So I sort of had an exit plan, but it didn't really end up like that. But at least I would have the foresight looking back on it. I had an idea of what I wanted to do when I got out. I just wasn't joining the military out of like off a whim. I sort of had a plan, but it didn't really
And that's the key. You
right.
absolutely just hit the nail on the head. The moment you join and you get in, you need to already be thinking
You
about your
have to.
exit
You
strategy.
have to. That's even with business. That's with anything. Like you have to have that exit strategy. It's so important. So absolutely. Like if you plan that out, maybe it won't go as planned, but if you put it on paper, it will become more of a reality than if you don't. So, but
So if anybody has any questions about transition or you need support or you're kind of feeling like you're a little bit untethered like Wilson and you need some support, there are numerous organizations out there to help support you. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to make time to talk with anybody who just needs just to think out loud and be able to figure out what next steps are. And I know that it's scary and that I'm a total stranger and you don't know me from Adam, but I'm just one of the many people who are out there who genuinely want to be able to support the veteran community to make sure that you know that you're not alone, that you don't have to do any of this by yourself, and that all of the feelings that you are having are completely normal. And so feel free to reach out.
hey, thank you for being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. If you guys need Brage's assistance, I'm sure she'll be willing to help you guys, like she just said. So 22 a day is too many. I don't even know if that's the right number nowadays, but like that's just, I did the math. It's like 8,000 something veterans a year that commit suicides. Like there's plenty of,
Okay.
it's ridiculous. So, hey, if you guys need help, reach out. We're all here to help. So I hope you all have a blessed day. Thank you for listening in. Brage, thank you. Hope you have a
Thank
good
you.
weekend.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.